Good morning. My name is Matt Swift, and I'm a law librarian at the Wyoming State Law Library. Today we're doing part 2 of the Wyoming State Statutes presentation, and we're going to be looking at legislative history and statutory history. This is our contact slide, and it tells a little bit about what we do at the State Law Library. And if you need to get a hold of us, there's contact information there. Please always feel free to call or send us an email if you ever have any questions regarding legal research. So what is legislative history? Black's Law Dictionary defines it as the background and events leading to the enactment of a statute, including hearings, committee reports, and floor debates. Legislative history is sometimes recorded so it can later be used to aid in interpreting the statute. Today we're going to pick up kind of where we left off last week. Now that we know how to find a statute, what happens when you need to know the history of a statute? As we all know, our society changes and our laws change to reflect that. A hypothetical example of our laws changing might be that internet laws 10 years ago may be much different than they are today. So somebody may want to do research to see how or when those changes happened. And another example of maybe why somebody would want to see the history of a statute or a law is, let's say someone committed a crime 10 years ago, but they were just caught today. The statutes that were in effect at the time of the crime would be the ones used to determine what laws were broken and possibly the punishment that would be called to. Okay, legislative histories in Wyoming. Unfortunately, conducting a legislative history in Wyoming can be difficult. The Wyoming legislature does not publish many resources that can be used to research legislative intent or legislative history. Because of this, oftentimes when people are talking about conducting a legislative history, they're really doing more of a statutory history. Conducting a legislative history can be fairly difficult. Different states have different resources available that may be used. Wyoming, however, tends to be fairly lean when it comes to what information is available. This can be good or bad. It may simplify the process, but you may not find all the info you were hoping to find. In recent years, Legislative Service Office has started making more information available, and much of it is on their website, but it's not comprehensive. Their session archive goes back to 2001. They also have House bill and Senate file information, including amendments and the voting record. They are now making audio recordings of the sessions also. We're going to do an example of a legislative or statutory history using print resources, and these next 5 slides are going to be a little repetitive, but it will show you step by step what you do if you're doing a simple statutory history. And we're going to be using the print statutes and print session laws. The first thing you're going to want to do is look at the current statute, and that's we're using the same one that we used last week, Title 6, Chapter 3, Section 701. It's the check fraud one and its definitions. And on the left side of the page, you can see the full page that has the statute on it, and then on the right side there's a close-up of the history. And the history is what we're going to use to trace back the statute and the changes that have been made over the years. The first one we're going to do, when you look at the history, it says Laws 1982, Chapter 75, Section 3. We will find laws means session laws, so we will find the 1982 Wyoming Session Laws, locate Chapter 75 and Section 3. And that is this. When we do it at the law library, we like to include a copy or a scan of the title page of the statute, or the session laws book that we receive this, or copy the session law from. So you'll see that this is from the 1982 session, and then over here on this side of the page you'll see that's chapter 75. The section number is probably on a few pages prior to this, and then here's our statute. And it's the same for the next one in the history. We would find the 1983 Wyoming Session Laws, locate chapter 96 and section 2. And here you can see that this is chapter 96, section 2, and here's 63701. And then here's our title page showing that it's from 1983. And you just go through the list in the history in the statute book. So this would be the next one, 1983, chapter 171, section 1. And here it is, and here's our title page. Same thing again. And this is the last one. So now you have basically compiled a simple statutory history, and now it can be to, if you want to copy it or scan it and send it to your patron, or if they're there, you have the whole thing is done and ready to go. Here are some additional resources that I've found useful. And I'm pretty new to the law librarian profession. I've been at my job for less than a year, and I come from a public library background. So making that transition from public library to law librarian has been somewhat challenging. But here's a few books that I found really helpful, and the first two really are written for librarians, and the first one in particular for somebody who has a library background but not a library or a law librarian background, and both of them are really good about explaining terminology, how to do simple things, and just stuff that's kind of expected from a law librarian. The last book, Wyoming Legal Research, is kind of the only book of its kind. It's specific to Wyoming. It was written by Deborah Pearson and Tanya Plum, who are law librarians at Hopper Library over at UW, and it's an excellent resource to have in your library if you're needing help doing legal research. And then here's a few more electronic resources. I talked about Hein Online last week, and most of the libraries in the state, I believe, have access to it through their wild databases. And Hein, we'll go there real quick. If you wanted to do a statutory history, you might be able to get some of it done through Hein. They have a Session Laws library. We're at Hein now, and I'm going to go down to Session Laws. And then we'll scroll down to Wyoming. And I'm going to show you the first session law that we did in our example, which was from 1982. And it was Chapter 75, Section 3. Now, this is going to take us to page 1. You could, in fact, scroll through this till you got to Chapter 75 and Section 3, and you can jump pages. And I happen to know just from doing the research for this one that what we're looking for is on page 551. So there's the session law available on Hein, just like it is in print from our example a few minutes ago. The next one is Wyoming Legislation Online, and this is a database put together by the Wyoming State Law Library, the Legislative Service Office, and the Wyoming State Archives. And if you are looking for House bills, Senate files, those sorts of things, you should be able to find them here. And we'll do kind of a quick search for the one used in our example. And we're going to go decade, and then 1980s. We're going to go to 1982. Bills again. And then because this search takes a little bit, I already went ahead and did it. I would have searched for check fraud here as a keyword. And it would bring this up. And here's Senate File 63. And you can scroll through the PDF and see the roll call. And the roll call. And the part we're looking for on this is on page 88. And here it is, 63701. Those are our check fraud statute, and this is the Senate file of that from that earlier session law. And last, this is a guide, and I'll just let you look at it for a few seconds. A really good guide of the kind of things that may be available for doing a legislative history. A lot of it might be available through the Legislative Service Office, but it'll show you different types of things or resources, and then where they may be available at. And I can send anybody these links for any of these if they would like, if you just send me an email. And if you ever are find yourself where you have to do a legislative history at your library, please feel free to call us. We do it all the time, and we'd be happy to help.